presenters include all the people who are on screen. And then we will finish up with Mike Churches from Mod Bikes with a special announcement as well. So with that, we are ready to begin. I think that there's going to be a gong here. Let's see. Yes. And our first presenter is going to be from Action Figure.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Kaywood. I'm the founder and CEO of Action Figure. A few people still know us by our original name, Transit Screen, which is now the name of a product, a real-time multimodal transportation display that we sell all over the world. But we rebranded as Action Figure because of some of the things we're doing here that I'll highlight along with one of our recent projects that was pretty high profile. So starting here with the challenge, which is that I think there's a common misconception consumer apps like Google and Uber, which can be multimodal, are the solution to transportation problems. I know everyone here knows that cars aren't the solution to transportation problems, but I think this is a similar trap because consumer apps are so ubiquitous. So I want to unpack and debunk this idea. Unfortunately, I get to go first. Let me share a little bit first about Action Figure, where we come from. We have the most widely used B2B software platform for urban transportation, and we have thousands of business customers, employers, real estate owners, malls, stadiums, and events. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those events, but we work all over the country and in fact, in the world. We use our own data, and this is kind of important because we have data about every public transit mode in Austin, including Cap Metro, the US, and several other continents, and shared transportation, Uber, Lyft, and uniquely private transportation and parking. So if you think about that, that's something that Google Maps never has and never will have, and that makes a huge difference. So our first product, as I mentioned, was Transit Screen. This is an example of one. You can see all the multimodal real-time information, crowding, etc. And we install them in places from buildings here to giant stadiums where we power displays. Like this is the Golden State Warriors Stadium in San Francisco, and we reach almost 1 million people with those. Here's another example of an event screen, because I'm talking about events. This is at Climate Pledge Arena for the Seattle Kraken. And so they use this as people leave the stadium to help them manage traffic and manage egress and get them to the metro and the sound transit and whatever easily and without much fuss or and safety concerns. So I was driving recently, and Google Maps rerouted me off the highway with a detour. Unfortunately, I also reroute half the people on the highway, and so that was a disaster. Maybe they can solve that, maybe they can't. But the point is, consumer apps sometimes are wrong for the consumer, and they're always wrong for the event or stadium or airport or employer, because whether you admit it or not, you're competing with them, and you're competing with individual choices. You can't solve congestion with individual choices. Now, my brother lives here in South Austin, and I know we have a lot of planned special events here, South by and Austin City Limits and so on. So I want to talk a little bit about how we approached a big event recently and used our software to increase transportation efficiency and solve some TDM problems. This is the PGA Championship this year in May, which was at Quail Hollow Country Club in Charlotte, North Carolina. And there were several different transportation services provided because there is just not enough parking at the club for even a tenth of the people who want to attend. And so if somebody follows Google Maps, they will get turned around and they'll get sent back to some park and ride, right? Starting them off on a bad foot. We worked with our partner TMS, which is the world's largest event transportation operator. They do mega events, World Cup, Olympics all over the world. You can see some 30 years in business. And they also do small events too, like the convention center. They'll do those too. So it's a whole range of different TDM operations, really. And then, just specifically for this one in Charlotte, there were a bunch of different event transportation options that we brought. So there was ride-hailing pickup and drop-off zones. There was VIP parking, limited. There were 3 park and ride shots with event shuttles. And then there was also light rail service. So CATS actually had extra service and detoured routes. So there was a lot of stuff there that was unique to the event that nobody would have found out about if we hadn't been providing event transportation information. So in addition to putting transit screens at the course, unfortunately, I don't have pictures of that yet, we delivered a mobile app. And even without promoting it pre-event, we still have thousands of users using it for real-time information and trip planning while at the event. So there's a lot of demand for this. And the way we're thinking about this is for upcoming events, for the future, it's really a four-stage model: pre-event planning to understand what the needs are, where people are coming from, then giving them access to a trip planner beforehand so they can plan their trip, and then one on the day of use real-time information and trip planning to help them have a better trip, and then use real-time and dynamic messaging to reach the 80% of people who aren't on their mobile phone when they're at the course, and really solve the problem there. So this is the AI tool that we've developed to help design a data-driven transportation program. It's called Foresight. We call it emotional intelligence, really. So it's predicting how people are travel and then designing programs and interventions to help make that more efficient. So the goal at events, if you just allow consumer apps to do what they do and you allow people to drive where they drive, then you end up with this outcome: people stuck in the parking lot instead of where they actually want to be, which is going to be at the event. This is actually Dodger Stadium, by the way, but I thought it was a great photo. So people want to be at the event watching and participating. And so you want to give a seamless travel experience. And that's even more true for, everything else for your daily work life, for at your job, and as it is for stadiums, events, and any of these other places where there's a lot of traffic that you can never manage without the help of some technology. So, whether you're a city or a transit agency or major employer, TDM is marketing. And so you need a multi-channel communication strategy, including screens, mobile web, services, and planning. And so we need to provide tools with the right information and make them comprehensive so people can get all their information in one place and not scatter to other services. So, we work with everyone on this call, from Movability to Lyft Tango. So please give us a call or send me an email, and we can help you design a transportation program using emotional intelligence. Thanks.
There we go. There we go. Hi, everybody. Dominic Haig with Track, and I have to actually correct Matt immediately on something there. That when I began in this space, about 12 years ago, I looked up TDM, didn't know what it was, and UrbanDictionary.com informed me it stands for Total Dick Move. Apparently, that's what the. Anyway, moving quickly on. So I'm Dominic with Track in San Francisco. We're a software company. We provide a mobility management system. And what I want to talk about today, a little bit about how I got into this space, but about shuttles. Why do people use shuttles, and how are some perhaps interesting ways people can exploit shuttles as a way of getting people to where they want to go. So to start with, as you know, how I got here, I started in a chrysanthemum farm some years ago, went off to an ATE company selling chips, selling boards, back to another ATE company, and then, as Mark Andreessen says, software is eating the world. So I started in various software companies, and then been doing TDM, and shuttles for some time now. And I think this is a great space, and I'll say why. First of all, because everybody knows what you do at work. So if you say to your grandmother, I help people get to where they need to go, she will say, I understood every word in that sentence. Unlike talking to somebody who does something in software, and everybody needs it, and it is needed, is ubiquitous, the need. So who needs shuttles? All kinds of people, companies, institutions, hospitals, major construction sites, fulfillment centers, universities, oil refineries, big sports events, all kinds of things outside of public transit, of course. So the different kinds of routes, these could be commute, they could be campus loops, parking lot shuttles, various kinds of ways and different places people need to get to get to their destination. Okay, so the question is, why do companies and institutions have shuttles? So they need it perhaps to have people be productive on their way to work, to make people happier to stay at work, for retention, to help them with recruiting if people live far away from work, to make them eager to take that particular job. It could also be obviously for dealing with congestion. There could be local requirements for that. Could be avoiding reducing parking demand. I don't know about other parts of the country, but in the Bay Area, a new multi-story parking structure costs about $40,000 per space. So if you can avoid that, and if you're a landlord, it could be a requirement for to attract tenants to your commercial property. Now, if you're a rider, there are some key things you want to know. You want to know, when does the shuttle go? Where do I need to go to get on the shuttle? And where is my bus right now? Key things for getting people confident in using any kind of shuttle service. However, there are other people who can use that information as well. So people in operations might want to know what's our ridership like, what's our peak ridership, what happens on Fridays, things such as that. And what's our ridership at particular stops? Are more people getting off, or not people not using particular stops? Operations people could also want to know things such as what happened on a particular day. Did the driver go the right way? Somebody claimed our bus cut them off. Was that our bus, or was that somebody else's bus that was there at that time? It could be things such as rider calls up and says, your bus left the stop early. And you look up the details and say, no, they didn't. And they go, okay, maybe I was running late that day. Another useful thing I'll mention here is, and shout out to the Open Mobility Foundation with MDS, which is a way that people running mobility services can integrate with cities and be providing real-time information about vehicle location, ridership, stop usage, things such as that. So that's all great. However, one of the things that challenges that now is the flexible working. You've got all those requirements to get people to work on certain days, but the actual total number of riders that you might have on any particular day is probably less on a given day. And what that does to your cost per rider means it has shot up over the past few years because you just don't have the same number of people on a given day going to work. So what are some things you can do about that maybe technology and strategies can come to help with reducing your sharing that cost? So one of which is you could be collecting fares from riders, and we know some people who did. It's companies who collect some fares now. Disabuse everybody. Nobody's going to pay for a bus service on collecting fares. I think the only bus service in the world that fully pays for itself is the Hong Kong Transit. Nobody else does. It all needs some kind of subsidy to make it work. You could share with local companies, and we know people who are doing this. The companies in a similar location share bus services from perhaps coming out from the city to a town where there's an office park or things such as that. And where there are some issues with doing that, obviously the things such as, okay, what route are we going to take? What time are we going to come? What are the stops we're going to serve? Dealing with who manages liability, who has the contract with the bus operator. But the biggest one clearly is the money. So how do we deal with this financially between company partners in a bus service? And there are several models I'd like to suggest. One of which is where either the riders pay fares. They could be paying different fares for the different partner companies on a bus, but that's one way of sharing the cost. Then there's some other perhaps more interesting ways. So another way you could be doing that is where you examine how many rides people take in a particular quarter, let's say, and then you charge out. You take up the total cost, you divide it out, and you say, okay, you had 94 rides in the quarter, so that's the amount of money that you as a partner are going to pay. So everybody pays the same cost per ride of the partner companies in the service. Or you could be doing it other ways. So you could be looking at what the ridership is the whole period. The companies could also be collecting fares from their riders to offset the costs that they're incurring. But the goal is that the companies get control over what their individual costs are, but there's equity between the different company partners on a service. So, very brief survey. Why people use shuttles, what they do. I'm looking forward to seeing your questions in the chat. And I think I'm about to get gonged in about 5 seconds. And badang. Thank you all.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike from Lift and Go. This is my first pecha kucha. Hopefully I've said that right. So I'll try to have some fun with it. I've realized I haven't mentioned any of our revenue generating products, so apologies for that, or apologies to my commercial team for that. So the main message I want to say today is that commuting in your own car absolutely sucks. There's nothing that riles me up quite like driving at rush hour in a major city, kind of shouting out the window on the horn. And it's not just me that hates commuting. I'm kind of going to talk through the different angles that you might see within a big city. And especially with a high return to office, a lot of big cities are seeing major construction at the moment. In Austin, I know there's an I-35 reconstruction, light rail and some toll lanes going in as well. So this problem's only going to get worse for major cities. So I wanted to talk you through what this looks like from our three protagonists, the employee, Darren, the city, Deepa, and the employer, Darlene. So we're going to look at each of their perspectives on single occupancy commuting and how that might affect their day-to-day lives, or in this case, maybe ruin their day-to-day lives. So we'll start with Darren. Darren's a real go-getter, you know, the type. He's trying to climb the corporate ladder. He's got a big job in the city of Austin, and he's ready to go. So we'll see how Darren's commute can go from really up for it through various different emotions and maybe get him in the wrong mindset for work. So first of all, as the ladder climber that he is, Darren knows that time is his greatest asset. Now, his commute at the moment should be 15 minutes by car, and it's taken him 45 minutes each way. That means Darren is losing around about an hour a day just sitting in the car. On top of that time lost, he's realized that parking in downtown Austin is a high cost, and his employer isn't paying for it. So he's actually burning a lot of the money that he's earning in this big new job, just getting to and from work. And of course, as he progresses, he needs to pay for nicer spots that have status as well. So he sees that issue. Finally, Darren, like me, just hates driving. He's on the horn. He's screaming out the window, "Did you get your license from a cereal box?" when people are cutting him off. And that means he's getting to work, and more importantly, home from work, in completely the wrong mindset. He's not managing to do a good job with either his family or his work. So now we'll meet Deepa. She's a real, good energy, perfect person to be around, loves the city, grew up in Austin, and knows everything about the city. She really wants to attract businesses there and see good growth within the city. But Deepa really gets quite despondent when she sees the congestion on the streets in Austin. She doesn't like to see people complaining about the city. And what she knows, being in the city, is that 3 of these lanes are going to close next week with absolutely no mitigation plan at all. So she's pretty shocked by this. The other thing she's seeing, because of all these cars on the road, the wear and tear on the assets, or these monuments we built for cars, she's seeing the cost grow through labor and materials. She's seeing that city maintenance budget really growing up with no good way out, basically. And then after all of these meetings, she ends the day with a meeting with a large employer trying to attract them to Austin. And they had to deal with this traffic and lack of options. And she knows she's up against other major cities like Denver, Colorado, and Oshkosh, Nebraska, which are major hubs for businesses that might move somewhere else. So she's pretty sad by the end of this. We'll finally meet Darlene. Darlene's our seasoned executive. Nothing can faze Darlene. She's gone through serious negotiations with Fortune 500 companies and represented the business in court. So absolutely nothing can faze Darlene. But in the first week of her new office opening in Austin, she had 100 emails about parking. People saying they couldn't get spots. Damn, Toby parked in my spot. He's not meant to park there, and I had to park 3 blocks down the street. And poor Darlene just doesn't want to deal with this. She looked at the price of just buying another parking lot. As Dominic just said, this is very expensive to buy lots in major cities. It's a big headache for her. On top of that, she's having to deal with up to 35 minutes of late per week per employee. Living in a major city, commutes are pushing towards these. And some people just don't show up. There's absenteeism that's costing employees around $3,600 a year. Maybe not all to commute, but a bad commute can contribute to this. All of this is leading poor Darlene to really pull her hair out because she's losing employees hand over fist. Employees are wanting jobs that are remote now, so they're finding it hard to attract new employees, and some are moving to the country and starting jam shops and country stores for an easier life. So once again, the driving on your own sucks for everyone. We've taken our ready-to-go ragtag band here and reduced them to just screaming, blathering idiots all over single occupancy vehicle commutes. So the question becomes, why don't people see other options, or why aren't people choosing other options? And we get bombarded with these beautiful pictures of lovely cars on the open road, and we're really selling freedom when we send those photos. But you know, people don't see other options. I mentioned taking the bus in Houston the other day to a friend, and he looked at me like I was an alien. He didn't really know what the bus was or that there was a bus. But there are other options. There are other options that are better for your mental health. You don't get as frustrated when you've got other friends in the car. They're better for your physical health if you can power the vehicles on your own. And who knows, you might see someone famous if you take public transport. We know Paul McCartney likes to take trains, and I know he's coming to Austin in October. So what if poor Darlene's just screaming at you, show me the money? It doesn't work. I'm not going to invest in this unless it makes sense. Lift and Go and our partners have pulled together a simple calculator so you can start those conversations with your employer or employers in your region. If you're interested in that, please reach out and I can send you a test link. Final thought is that all these issues are quite exponential. So you don't have to reduce the number of cars by 50% to see a 50% benefit on all of these things. So even if you aren't someone that's going to get out of a car, everyone should be a protagonist and a salesperson for TDM solutions. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy from Scoop Commute. This is going to be my first go at this type of presentation. So looking forward to it. And thanks to everyone else who presented before us. Before me, I'm actually going to take a different approach and I have a storybook to read to everybody. So the book is called Ride Together, Thrive Together. It's a story by Scoop Commute. And we're going to talk about carpooling, which is what Scoop focuses on. Oh, there's the thing. Okay, here we go. So in Gridlockia, congestion was a way of life. Rush hour stretched from dawn until dark. Parents missed bedtimes. Workers missed meetings. And neighbors stopped waving because no one ever moved. Traffic wasn't just an inconvenience. It was stealing time, health, and happiness. Children waited alone after school. Small businesses struggled with delays. Emergency vehicles were slowed, and smog filled the air. For Leo Baxter, the city traffic commissioner, every horn and complaint felt personal. He carried the weight of the gridlock, believing he was failing the people who trusted him with managing the city's traffic. Leo had tried everything. New lights, new lanes, public campaigns, nothing worked. On the verge of resigning, he began to pack up his desk when he found an old folder, Carpool Stories. He began to read the stories in the folder. The first one was about soccer practice challenges. The Johnsons had 1 car, 2 jobs, and 3 kids. Chaos was the norm. If Daniel was in traffic, the kids missed soccer. Until Daniel began carpooling twice a week and left the car behind. On carpool days, Sarah took the car to bring the kids to soccer without rush or stress. Evenings became calmer. Family dinners returned, and the kids scored more than just goals. Second story was about Luna. So Priya and Maria met in the backseat of a carpool on their first day of work. Priya needed to rehome her dog named Luna. Maria had just moved into a pet-friendly apartment, and Maria liked dogs. By Friday, Luna had a new home and a familiar face in a carpool. Every ride was now full of wagging tails, wet noses, and the occasional paw on the horn. Definitely a happy-looking dog there. Carpool leads to love. Emma and Jake shared their first ride out of convenience. 2 strangers avoiding lonely commutes and finding connection in shared playlists and morning coffee. Weeks of small talk became real conversations, and spending time together outside of their commute. 2 years later, real love. When Jake proposed, he reflected on that fateful day when they met in a carpool. Now married and expecting, their carpool lane is about to get a new passenger. Small, loud, and very loved. A career boost. Mateo matched in a carpool with Cynthia, a senior manager at his company. At first, it was just polite small talk, but eventually they discussed work, goals, and the future. One morning, Cynthia mentioned a new role in the company. It sounded like the perfect fit for Mateo. She encouraged him to apply, and with her support, he did. Mateo landed the job. More than that, he gained a mentor. Their commute opened doors to new ideas and opportunities. Leo turned the page to the last story, a new schedule. Jamie's factory shift meant a 2-hour bus ride. He missed many mornings and nights with his kids. Then his company's carpool program paired him with Ron, a neighbor. Now, Jamie can be around for breakfast and bedtime stories. When Leo finished the last story, he sat in silence. The anger, frustration, and shame he felt had lifted, and he was filled with hope. With each carpool, there was less congestion, less pollution, and a story of connection between people. Just like movability moves people. Leo realized that more shared rides could help Gridlockia. So he decided to launch a new initiative, Ride Together, Thrive Together. Carpool lanes, workplace initiatives, meetups, and a mobile app to match drivers and riders. Soon, the city began to change. Commute shortened, air cleared, and people smiled more. Families reunited for dinner. Friendships bloomed in carpools. And the city rediscovered its rhythm. Traffic may divide us, but shared rides unite us. When we share the road, we share our lives, and sometimes we find the best destinations together. So every carpool story in this book is a real story, and this is actually a real image. That's a picture of me on the left in a real carpool through Scuba Commute. This is a carpool ride in Seattle. And I've met many people through my work with Scoop Commute, through companies we work with and elsewhere. And I hear stories all the time about how carpooling has changed people's lives. It certainly reduces congestion, reduces pollution. And I hope, and it has a big ROI for businesses and regions. So I hope you'll share in our excitement about how carpooling can have a real impact on